Morning everyone. Okay, here's the first of the two videos that I promised you today. This is the card that we're going to be making, and this is using, let me just run through these with you, the Entwined Trees stencil, and we're also going to be using the wet weather stamp, because we want the rain out of that one. And then we're going to be using hers from the Out in the Fields collection here, the grass and flowers from the Untamed Textures, and then we're going to be using a few colours which we'll mention as we're going along, and I'm using mainly the Versacolour for those, and also the umbrella weather because we want the little umbrella out of here as well. So this is the card that we're going to be making, and as you can see we've got a nice border, a nice white border running around the outside, and that's simply because the 6x6 stencil pretty much goes to the edges of your 6x6 card, and we want a nice white border running around there so we can sort of really intensify those colours that are working around the outside. So we've just masked this out, and what I've done, I've just left this on a little piece of paper here so I can continually keep moving the paper around without having to peel my card on and off. And then what we're going to do is roughly position this just sort of in the centre of your card here, like that. Now to stick this down, I do use a little bit of the repositionable adhesive here, excuse me, and that just keeps it in place while you work. So for this one, we're going to use the Versafine Clair in the Fallen Leaves colour, and we're just going to start to apply that ink. Now with this card, as you can see here, we're not going all the way to the edge. It's one of the things I love about this stencil is we don't have to go use the whole thing if we don't want to. So I'm literally just going to use the very edges of this stencil here. So we're not going all the way to the edges. If you go a bit further, honestly doesn't matter, because I've posted cards on the group page where we've used the whole thing as well. But it's just a very, very versatile little stencil. So I'm trying to sort of fade this out as we get towards the edges of the card. So you can see we're not going too far out. I want to sort of have the centre bits just a little bit darker, and then fading out towards the edges of the card like that. While we're doing this, I just would love to say a massive thank you actually to all of you who support us. It really does go a long way to helping us sort of move forward with different products, and so thank you very much, and thank you for our wonderful design team as well, who are just full of inspiration for all of us, so thank you very much. So there we go, that's probably about all we need. So before we do anything else, I'm just going to pick up that ink that is just sitting on top of the card now. I'm just going to blend that back in. So it does two things. It keeps your stencil a little bit cleaner. I'm not the best at keeping things clean, to be honest, when it comes to this sort of thing. And, you know, also it's just using up that ink that's left sitting on top of your card there like that. Now, what we may find when we pull this off is that we get a little bit of the adhesive on the bottom here. So generally, if you've got a clean finger, you can just rub that off. It just comes straight off like that. And the one thing that I do love about the Versafine Clair ink is one of the reasons we use it is it doesn't bleed. So once it's dry, we can just colour straight over the top of this and not have to worry. Now I quite like, sometimes I'll get a little bit of brown sitting on the tape, and I quite like that. So I don't really mind too much if we do. So now we're going to start adding our colour. So I'm going to go with sort of a rainbow look on this one. But first we're going to add our yellow to the top. So for this I'm going to use the small Versacolour Canary. And we're just going to start to blend this in around these edges here. So just using your dry baby white and just blend over the edge here. So you see we're not smudging the brown. Sometimes we might pick up a little bit of damp brown ink, but that's absolutely fine. I just love the colour that you get with that anyway. So just little circular motions. And again, you want to do this quite sparingly. Don't use too much ink at once. You can always add a little bit more, like that. And if you want to, you could give your brown ink just a little bit longer to dry out as well before you start. Okay, so on top of this, we're going to add a little bit of the red. So this is Camellia. And every one you make will be different, which I love about this. We've slightly gone off-piste with this one as well and got something a little bit different. But honestly, that's one of the good things about this. You never end up with two cards exactly the same, which is lovely. Okay, so So when we've done that, we're going to start to do our rainbow technique now. So if I just turn my card round, I always prefer to sort of shade downwards towards me. And because we're going to go in a sort of angle, you see I've got my card at a diagonal really. So we're going to start with red. Now I always have to do the little poem in my head, the Richard of York, to get this right. But you don't need anywhere near as many colours. So what we're going to do is start with the red. And you'll see I've got rid of some of that ink first before we start. And I'm going to start up here because that's the easiest place to start, because you've already got some ink on your card there like that. And just start to go in sort of a little arch to give you that hazy rainbow look at the back there. And again, get rid of some of the ink first, because you can always add a little bit more. So after that, we're going to go with the canary. And where these two meet, you do get a sort of orangey colour, so you can completely miss out the orange. And just blend that in on top like that. And then we're going to go with green. So for this one, we're using green tea. It's slightly brighter than the bamboo that I usually use. And it just gives you a more Northern Lights look. Sorry, rainbow look. I'm so used to doing Northern Lights. It's also used for the Northern Lights. And just blend that in there like that. And you see how beautifully these inks blend together with this technique. Okay. Now, for the next bit, we're going to use a little bit of Atlantic and also a little bit of peony. So I'm going to go with the peony first, because I just find the peony blends better next to this green than the blue. And then just start to blend into that green, like that. And then over the top of that, we're going to go with a little bit of the Atlantic. And just blend that nice and softly over the edge there like that. And we can add a little bit over this side as well, just to fill in that gap. Okay, so next thing we do is put a little bit of green on. So we're taking it outside of this heart as well. So I'm going to go back to my trusty old bamboo here. Now this is a new one, so you can see how dark that is at first. So you want to be getting rid of most of that first before you take that onto your card. And then just start to blend from the edges here. And remember, we've got this lovely masked out border on the edges here, so that when we take this off, you've got this lovely bright white border, which is really just going to make that middle pop. Okay. And then go through your little heart as well to give yourself some grasses on the bottom. So it's almost acting like this little heart isn't there. You're going to taking all your colours straight through it. But you can see how beautiful that is. It doesn't move. So it's a really good sort of selling point for that ink. Okay. So basically we've got our background complete now. So what we need to do is put our main focal point in here, and then we're going to fill in around it. So for that, we're going to use our two little hairs. Okay, so I'm going to do my big hair first, and I'm going to make him sort of hold the umbrella as well, so he's sheltering the other little hair. And then, as I normally do with this, is just take off, because we're going to have him hiding or sitting in the grasses and the flowers. We don't want the brown to be too dark, because otherwise he's going to look like he's sitting on top of the grass or floating above it. Oops. Let's hope that's all right. Slippy fingers. There we go. Okay. And then what we're going to do is do the other one as well. So right next to him there. We have slipped a little bit there, but we can cover that up in a minute. And the same thing with this one. So just take your thumb. You can use a cloth for this if you want, if you don't want slippy fingers like I just had them. And then just stamp that just next to the other one here, like so. Okay, so you can see how it's just a little bit paler at the bottom there. So when we cover them in the little grasses, it's not going to be anywhere near as obvious. So this one now, we're going to use the little umbrella. So I'm going to do this in brown, and we want to make it look like the little hair here is going to be sheltering the other one. So we don't need all this handle and things, it's going to look a bit too big in that position. So what we're going to do is just ink the whole thing up, but not the little handle at the bottom. And then we're just going to soften this here, like that. Okay. And then let's just line it up about there. Okay. So there's our little hair holding our little umbrella. So what we're going to do is start to fill in this area here. So around here with all your grasses and all your little flowers. So for that, we're going to be using the Untamed Textures, the little grasses, the little flowers, the little foxglove heads as well. So we're going to start by filling in with our grasses, and then we'll add our flowers later. So start with your big grass, and we're going to start around the bottom here where we've already got these colours, and just start to add them. Now again, don't ink up every time, just let the ink run out on the stamp like that, and just fill in these borders. So go right over to the edges of your card here, and then start to stamp inside. So just between them like that, and you can see, just let the ink run out on the stamp and it'll give you much more of a sort of textured, soft look. And it just looks more natural. And the fact that we've already got this green, you know, coloured underneath there in the background, just means you don't have to be too precise or too careful where you actually put your other grasses. So I'm just going to go back in with some smaller ones. This is the smaller of the two grass stamps. So when we've got our base there like that, we can then just add some of the little flowers. So I'm going to use, I think, the blue, which is the Atlantic, and then also the peony. So let's go with the blue for the foxgloves. And we're just going to start to add these. So you can, if you want, take a little bit of that ink off. So depending on where you're wanting to go with those, you can just pop a paler colour, use a paler colour with those. And then we're going to add in some of the little poppy heads. Now I'm going to do these in purple because actually it doesn't really matter what colour you use for these. And just take off some of that colour and just dot that into the background there like that. Okay, so we're nearly there now. So what we're going to do now is add in our little bits of rain. So for that we're using our little rain stamp, and I'm going to use a combination of two colours. So we're going to go with the Atlantic and the peony again, and we're going to go all over with the blue. And I'm not going to do the big raindrop at the bottom because it's a bit big for this design. And then a little bit of the peony just over the top like that, and then we can start to add in our rain. So we're going to go from the edges of the card here, so like we did with the grass. So you're going through your design, a little bit of the pink, and then try and keep it in a similar angle as well, like so. Tiny bit of pink. Let's just take off a little bit of that colour so it's not quite as dark, and just try and keep it in the same sort of angle that we've stamped in when we started. Like that. Touch more. I think we've gone upside down with that one there. Never mind. Like that. So there's our pretty much finished card now. So I'm just going to run around the edges with a little bit of green around the bottom here like that, just to make sure we've got a lovely sort of deep line around the edges. And then just move your finger to a clean part on your wipe, and then we're just going to blend in from the edges here as well, like that. And then before we take this tape off, what we're going to do is just use our white highlighter pen. Now usually with this you do sort of have to let your inks dry with this. You can see there any little mistake that we made when I dropped that ink pad. Doesn't really matter that much. It doesn't really show up now we put the brilliant. So you will get a much better sort of finish with this once your inks are a little bit drier. So I'm just going to turn my card just while we do a few more little edges here. Let's put some little dots in these little flowers here, like that, just for a little bit of highlight. And then just where we've got, now I'm not too particular with my highlights. I just think it looks really pretty with a little bit of your images highlighted, so lovely along the back of your little hair here. And I like to sort of just take in some of this, and obviously I would do a lot more of this if there was time. I'm just doing little bits here just to show you. And you will maybe just have to sometimes just rub this off on the edges of your paper just to sort of declog it from the wet ink that you've been using on here. But like I said, if you leave that to dry, you will get a much better coverage with it. So let's just do some of those little grasses as well with that. And then just down some of these little raindrops as well. Let's not highlight the upside down ones. But don't we always point everything out if we make a mistake? Or have a happy accident. Maybe this one's not so happy, but never mind. These things happen. But unless you point it out, nobody's actually going to notice. So. Okay, so there we are. So that's that one finished. So now we can actually peel off these edges here. So this is a Scotch removable tape that we're using now. And you'll see I've left it on this little piece of paper. It just saves you having to keep peeling your card on and off all the time, like that. And then just off this bottom area here. And then all that's really left to do is to put a little bit of sparkle on here. And like I said, I would normally add a little bit more of the white, just to give it a little bit more of a highlight. But again, it's entirely up to you. You don't even have to use it if you don't want to. And we're just going to add in a little bit of sparkle here like that. And then just on some of your little raindrops, we're going to add some sparkle on these as well. Like that. Who doesn't like sparkly rain? Don't know why I've done rain. Maybe it's just because of all the rain that we've had lately. But I do like a sparkly, rainbowy rain. So just over the top now, we're going to sprinkle some of the glamour dust. And then we're just going to just wipe it off those little hairs like that. I'm going to give it a little tap. And there we have it. So there's our card that we've made, and there's our original here, which is slightly, again, they always look different. You're never going to get exactly the same card. But thanks for watching, and I hope you liked it. Thank you. Bye.